So, just kind of like a quick overview. We're going to be doing like a quick slide intro, kind of like before we get into the talks. So we're going to talk about the sponsors. We have a little game that it's like a little Quizlet game that you play and you get on your phones, and then whoever wins will get a free T-shirt. I'll just do like a recap summary of like, where we're at with Tampa Devs, any updates that are upcoming for future events, as well as just if you want to support Tampa Devs, if you want to get a T-shirt or get free stickers, et cetera, and then we get into the talks. So, first thing is our sponsor, Embark Collective. Would you like to say something, Evan?
Yeah, hi guys.
I'm going to hand over the floor. Here you go.
Hi guys. My name is Evan. I am the events manager here at Embark Collective. I just want to tell you guys a little bit about Embark Collective. If you haven't been or heard of us before, can I see, or I guess, a raise of hands who has either been in our space, heard of us, worked here, or anything, has an idea of what we do. I see some familiar faces over there. Hi, how's it going? Right. Yes, you're on leaderboard. I appreciate you coming in. So a little bit about Embark Collective. What we do is we are an educational nonprofit that supports tech startup companies and helps them thrive, scale, and build their businesses. Different than any other startup hubs that you'll find, or it's a kind of a new recipe, if you will, that our CEO Lakshmi Shenoy put together. And kind of built from the ground up based off of her experiences and her past roles at 1871 in Chicago. And through coaching, one-on-one coaching, account management, educational programming, and all of the above, if you will, that's how we help our companies. We've got, partners in the industry. We've got, investor groups that we work with. And a bunch of that kind of stuff. But I will, if you guys have any questions, we do have, of course, this event space too. So we do have classrooms, we've got conference rooms, we've got a bunch of different options. If you guys did want to have any other meetup groups, or if you had any other reasons to be a group of people, as long as it's surrounding innovation, technology, education, and startup life, technology, that kind of stuff, then we would love to have you. My card is at the front if anybody wants to get in contact with me, and then I will pass it along to the next sponsor. Any questions? Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Evan. So this is as you heard, Embark Collective helps Tampa-based startups build talents, scale, and grow companies. Yeah, so I went here 2 years ago. It was like super awesome. This is like the first time coming back since then. But I also want to give a shout out to the next sponsor. This is the sponsor that provided the food. Why does this never work? It's like, why can't I get this to work? Is it like, is it so far away? Wait, why does this not work? Like, I literally see the receiver going off. Oh, maybe you have to click it. Oh, okay, there you go. Hold on. Oh, there you go. Sorry, that works now. So our second sponsor, Brooksource, Ben was here earlier. He just had something else going on, so he just dropped off food. But he wanted me to give a few updates in terms of kind of some things that they're hiring for. So Brooksource is a hiring firm, or a recruiting firm, and they hire for a lot of different positions, whether it's for front-end development, back-end, full-stack, network engineering, data engineer, data scientist, Power BI, project managers. They hire for all different skill levels, whether it's like, if you're a seasoned developer or if you're a junior developer, it doesn't really matter. And they're a nationwide firm. So they have offices in Jacksonville and Tampa, as well as all across the US. And if you want to take a picture of this in case you're looking for opportunities, you'd have to reach out to Sally at brooksource.com. Her LinkedIn is right there as well. So in case you guys are looking for opportunities, I'll share the slide deck as well too. after we're finished. And I want to like kind of like put an icebreaker first before we get into like additional talks and conversations. So who here has used Kahoot? Okay, Alex, what did you use it for?
At school.
At school?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't have Kahoot back in the day, so what about you, Amy? School. Okay, well, I guess we're sort of a class, right? We're learning, new subjects together. I guess that counts, right? Yeah, so I got like a little basic JavaScript quiz. I just literally ripped it off W3 Schools. And basically, there's gonna be like a pin code, and then we have like a quiz challenge, and everyone competes for each other, or competes against each other, and we got free t-shirts, whoever wins. So who's in? Who wants to do this? Nobody? Nobody wants to do it? Okay, I'll just play with myself then. All right. So if you go over to kahoot.it, the link is kahoot.it, and then you put in this pin code, which is, wow, Mitch, you're really fast. Who's Mitch? Yeah, you've done this before. He knows exactly how this works. He's like, I'm ready to win. Yeah, hold on. How do I blow this out? How do I full screen? Oh, that's how you full screen. Okay, wow, I didn't know how to do that. I'll wait a couple of minutes until you guys join. I sort of did this whole little challenge like last minute, so there might be errors on it. They say that that bugs are features, right? It's like that's not a bug. We meant to throw it in there. That little padding issue, that little margin issue, like whatever. It's a nice bonus. Like you get extra stuff to see, or you get additional information that you're not supposed to get. It's a bug, not a feature. I don't know. I'm just saying random stuff. I just feel like because I'm on a stage, I might as well do it. All right, so we've got like 20 people here. Anyone else want to join? I think it seats up to 50, but we'll wait a little bit longer. So you just go to kahoot.it and then you hit in that game pin. Oh my God, Tom, you said don't play with yourself, Vince? That sounds so wrong. Okay. Who's cool guy?
Right here.
Oh, dude, okay, I see what it is, Justin. Wait, who's DD?
Hello, it's me. My name is Delia.
Oh, okay. Nice to meet you, DD. And
I like to
Dave,
go by
I
that.
see you over there.
I was moving around.
Sorry if I'm just putting people on the spot. Okay. All right, so you guys all ready to start? I think we had like 22 people, then 2 dropped. I guess they don't want free stuff, whatever. Oh, no, we got 22 now. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start it, and let's see. And don't judge me for like these like really easy, maybe hard questions because I literally just ripped it off on W3 Schools. No shame in that. But I wasn't sure what questions to put down because everyone comes from different backgrounds, but I've had a lot of basic JavaScript questions just for some context. I'm gonna go ahead and start. Oh, now we got 24 people. Maybe I'll just wait a little bit longer. Maybe we'll get to 25 and I'll start it. All right, I'll start it in like a minute. Okay, I'm gonna start anyways. Oh wait, I can't click on this. Oh wait, because it's on Mac. I keep forgetting we have 3 different computers set up here. One is for like that video, one is for this audio, and this controls everything. It's confusing. All right, you guys ready? Who's gonna win? Who's gonna win here? Who wants a free t-shirt? Nobody? Okay. Okay, first question. Inside which HTML element do we put the JavaScript? Is it JS, JavaScript, scripting, or script? And I think you just hit the button on your phone, and then you pick which one. It's like we're back in elementary school, right? We're all like trying to get the teacher's pad and vying for attention, or his attention. All right, so we got 17 people who got it right. And we have a couple of people that don't do JavaScript. Okay, okay, guys. All right, next one. Oh God, it's on this screen. I forget. Okay.
You're gonna get your steps in, Vincent.
I know. I just need my Fitbit. I don't. Okay, so who? Okay, so Amanda. I see you there, Mitch. He's the pro here. He's also done this many times before. First one to sign up. We got Connor. We got Cool Guy. I see you there. So correct syntax for referring to an external script called XSJS. So basically, if I want to throw like an external script on an HTML file, what do I do? Like which of these three? Oh, by the way, these chairs are really comfy too. Okay, so we got 19 people. All right, let's see. See who's winning now. Who's winning so far? Oh man, I'm betting everything on Mitch, man. I think Mitch is gonna win. First one to sign up, and also top of the leaderboard. But we got Connor coming up too. All right, next question. There's 8 questions, by the way. How do you write "Hello World" in an alert box? Is it alert hello world, message box, message, or alert box? There's supposed to be sound, by the way. I don't know why it's not playing. It's just like, you know, like a countdown sound, but whatever. All right, so we got that too. Where hello world? Oh wait, it was just 3 questions? Oh, I thought I put 8 questions down. Sorry. I didn't save it on my other computer. Okay, who's first? Oh, it's not Mitch. Dang. Wait, Connor, you win, man. Hey, what size t-shirt do you wear?
Medium.
Medium? Okay, I got mediums. I didn't play sports growing up, so if I miss horribly, hit, I hit Justin's head. Don't blame me. Oh. Yeah, so just kind of like a quick overview. Kind of when we started Tampa Devs, so it started as a group of friends. We kind of got together, and we actually met through dancing, believe it or not. And I just want to give a shout out just like some of the previous events that we've had so far. So the last event that we had it at ReliaQuest. It's a DevOps firm that's over in St. Harbor Island. And I did the first talk there. This is now the second talk that we're doing. But yeah, so we're just trying to build a community of the tech community in Tampa, as well as just reach out to different sponsoring firms. And the whole goal is just to like create a place for developers to grow together, in our journeys and our careers as well. And then some previous events. So we went to Hackathon Orlando. We actually competed and won there. That's over right here. And then our first event, we held it at in Channelside for the food truck event, and then we also had another event after that for more network opportunities. But yeah, just a quick overview. Kind of like a brief overview of how we're doing the talks. So we're going to have the main talks first, and then if anyone wants to come up and do like a lightning talk, where you just kind of come up here and say like, you found a new cool blog or cool software out there, and you want to share a case and show it, and show it to the whole audience, like, hey, this is this cool thing I found online, or here's like a startup project that I'm working on, and this is kind of where it's at. If you just want to come up after the talk and just like present it on stage and walk around this fancy little floor like I am, if you've never done this before, yeah, feel free to do that. And then we have some time for networking as well. So, wow, I think I animated 3 times because I just did this last minute. We have another event, so we're still doing 2 events a month. One is kind of like a low effort event where we just have networking, and then the other one's like a more larger effort event, like this one where we get people together. We have learning opportunities, networking, and food. So the next one's going to be for an intro to React and Git. We have 2 speakers lined up for that. I don't have a venue planned out for that yet. It's still a work in progress, but that's on a Wednesday of next year. And if you want a T-shirt, you could just be like Connor and just be the best person out there for one of those JavaScript questions. But we also have it's this one right here. We're just selling it at cost. It's $20. And then if you want free stickers, help yourself. Some social links as well. If you want to take a picture of this, we have a bunch of different places for social media. We always have a call for speakers as well. So if you're interested in giving a talk, whether it's something that you're learning or you want to learn about or you know about already, hit us up at TDevs@gmail. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And then I'm going to bring it over to Zabi for the first talk. You ready, man?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hello, can you guys hear me fine? Okay, so my name is Zebi Gabler, and I'm currently a front-end developer, front-end software engineer, same thing. I really like IoT, and I wanted to have a small presentation about Intro to TypeScript, as I feel like it's a really cool language that has helped me immensely as a front-end software engineer, and I hope you also learn how it can help you guys too if you ever get into front-end software engineering. So these are some of the topics we're going to be covering. What is TypeScript? What kind of programming language it is? Why use it? Just some of the primitives and other main types that you encounter in every single language, and how the syntax works, and especially in TypeScript. So that's the topics I'm going to go over. So first, before I even begin the talk, I just wanted to see how many of you have used TypeScript before, just with a raise of hand. Okay, just a couple of people. And how many of you use JavaScript but not TypeScript? So a couple of people. And then what about people, I guess, who didn't raise their hand, haven't used both? I guess people haven't used both. Okay, yeah, that's a good mix of people from both, like all 3 areas. I think that it'll help all 3 of you. For people who are already used to TypeScript, maybe not since the intro talk, but maybe you'll learn something that cool little feature that you haven't seen before. And for people who use JavaScript, I hope by the end of the talk I've convinced you to use TypeScript and realize why TypeScript is better and why it was created in the first place. And for people who haven't used both, maybe if you start a new project, you lean towards TypeScript rather than JavaScript. So that's my goal for this talk. So to begin with, what is TypeScript? It's an open source language that was created by Microsoft. So it's not just some random person who created it. It's backed by a really big company, and it was developed in-house for a couple of years, and it was released to public in 2012. It has a huge GitHub presence and a huge GitHub community. I think it has about 70,000 GitHub stars, so a lot of people follow it and use it. And as far as in terms of its relationship with JavaScript, it is a type superset of JavaScript, and I'll explain what that means. But essentially, any code that you write in JavaScript is also a valid TypeScript code, and it works as expected, which makes it really easy to migrate from JavaScript to TypeScript, because anything you literally have to change from .js to .ts, and it'll work as expected. No behavior difference. And also, it works on the front end and back end. Like JavaScript, you can use Node.js, and you can do anything that you do with Node.js. I guess you can use it as Node.ts, and on the front end, you can use it for React, Vue, or just simple TypeScript. Angular comes built in with it, and similarly for React, you can have a create React app that starts off directly with TypeScript built in. So there's no issue in terms of that as well. And similarly, it's multi-paradigm like JavaScript. It's better. It has more or better OOP support than than JavaScript because of some of the features I'll mention, but it is multi-paradigm like OOP, functional, and simple imperative like JavaScript as well. Okay, so why use TypeScript? So as is evident from the name as well, it's JavaScript but with more types. So in JavaScript, there is typing, but it's done mostly behind the scenes. You don't really type a variable saying int x equals 5 or x number equals 5. There's no way to tell what type a variable is in JavaScript. But in TypeScript, you can specify that from the beginning. So it's strongly and statically typed. And just to get a feel of people who understand what that means, what's the opposite of statically or static? Dynamic. So a language could be dynamically typed, and what would be the opposite of strongly? Loosely. Or weakly, loosely, weakly. So a language could be either strongly typed or weakly typed or statically typed or dynamically typed. That's 2 different variables, so you can have up to 4 different types of languages with all those combinations. So does anybody know what that means if a language is statically typed? Go ahead, just.
Okay, so if I'm correct, so like right now in JavaScript, you could set a variable to like integer, and then later you could reset that same variable to like a string.
Yeah.
But if it's static, it's actually not do that.
Yeah, that's exactly how I understand it. I don't have an academic definition, but if you have a variable declared in the beginning of your code that's an integer or a number or whatever, and you can later change it to a different type, that would be dynamically typed. Typing could change as the program is running. And does anybody know what languages are dynamically typed? Python. JavaScript. I think those are the 2 popular ones that are dynamically typed and strongly typed. Oh, don't accept TypeScript, I guess it's something to go on the board. I think Java, C#, C++, I think they're all statically typed. You have to declare that variable in the beginning and you can't change it without some type assertions. So strongly, the opposite being weakly typed, it's not really Boolean like statically and dynamically type is. It's more of a spectrum, what is going from weak to strong. And it talks more about type safety. What are you allowed to do with a certain type? So in JavaScript, you can add an integer 1 to a string zubby, and you will get 1 zubby in a string, which is probably not something you expect from other languages. Other languages will probably give you an error saying you can't add an integer in a string. So I would consider JavaScript as weakly typed. Other languages are more stricter when it comes to what you can do with a certain type. You can't add strings or integers. In C++, you can convert from pointer to integer, integer to pointer. Those are some of the weaknesses in their type system, which makes the language weak overall. So when you're talking about a language that is both strongly and statically typed, you're talking about a language that helps prevent a lot of bugs, which gives a lot of confidence to developers when they're developing. And we'll see how it can give you confidence in a real example as well. I said that earlier. So that's just a meme I threw out. So just TypeScript is pretty much JavaScript is a superset, so everything in JavaScript is TypeScript, but better, and we'll see how. So this is a JavaScript code. Actually, I wrote it in a TypeScript file, but it is JavaScript, and I just want you to see how a compiler, if there's no errors on this code. I have it on Stack Blitz. You can have it in any IDE. There's no errors, and you won't get any errors compile time. But try to guess if you could, what would be the type of message?
Do you want me to get the Stack Blitz link? All right.
So we have message.push. Push usually is in JavaScript. That's for pushing to an array. So message could be array. You're calling a message. Message could be a function. Message.lowercase. Which one of these three do you think are right?
They're all,
Say again?
They're all right.
I mean, that's the point. I wanted you guys to think they're all
which is
right.
just wrong,
Say again?
which is just wrong. That they're
Line
all
7's wrong.
Yeah. None of them are right, actually. They're all misspelled. Well, I guess the middle, none of them are spelled correctly except the middle one's camel case, but there is no such function as lowercase. There's two lowercase. And compiler won't help you with that. Or you won't get any intelligence saying this is the types that you, or this is the functions that you can call on this because message doesn't have a type. It doesn't know if it should tell you string functions, array functions, or functions like callable. So it doesn't know, but if it's an object or not, or anything. And similarly, line 14 through 17, there's 4 examples of how you could call it. There's infinite ways to call it, and again, it won't complain. It will let you call it, and you can see how it's really hard as a developer to trust your own code. You make a spelling mistake, and then you're wondering why your code was wrong, and you have to go through and make sure your spelling is correct. Luckily, there's some spell checkers in VS Code, especially, and I'm sure the IDs have them too, so that can help. But again, that language isn't really helping. You have to use outside tools to get help. And we'll see how easy it is to fix it in TypeScript. So a lot of companies are using TypeScript. It's not a new language that I'm presenting on. According to this, about over 3,000 companies are using TypeScript, and of course Microsoft is using it, and GitHub because they bought it. But I'm sure a lot of other big companies are using TypeScript, and any project that comes with Angular is TypeScript. And this is the responses from the latest 2021 Stack Overflow survey. 72% of people loved using TypeScript. That's the third on this list, and second for the number of people who really wanted to code on it. And these are not people who are developing it, but have expressed in developing it. So again, a really popular language, up and coming languages. I think in the next couple of years, we'll have more developers coding in it, more so than JavaScript. So I think it's definitely important to learn, and it should help you become more employable, as a lot of companies are already using it or want to use it. So when it comes to primitives, it's pretty simple. String, there's no other char types. It's just string, there's number, no int, no float, 2.4, 2 or 2 pi, all of them are numbers. Boolean, true, false, undefined, null. Those are confusing why there's 2 types of empty, and probably won't get into why there's 2 types of them, but when you declare a variable without assigning it to any value, like that x, you have the type undefined, and null is supposed to be a value that you assign yourself as, so it's more of an intentional empty value, and undefined is a more of an unintentional language, you just haven't defined a value on it yet. Void is just the return type of a function that doesn't return anything. So just starting off with arrays and tuples. Can you guys see that one? Yeah.
Oh wait, I can't. I can't do that. Can you zoom in on Mac again? I forget. I'm a Windows guy. Zoom in on Mac.
I think it's Command plus.
Command plus. Oh, you know what? It's because I'm zoomed in. Hold on. F11. No. How do you exit out full screen? Oh. Here. Here. Let's go.
Yeah, is that? Yeah.
Okay. Enhance further, guys.
No, go zoom out a little bit. That's good. Is that good for you guys? So this is TypeScript code, not JavaScript, and you can see the first line, const r equals array 1, 2, 3, and it'll infer, so you don't have to specify the type, and it is statically typed, but you don't have to mention the type of the array or any variable. if you say 1, 2, 3, it'll take the type of a number array, and that's the syntax. And another array on 2, that's how, if you wanted to explicitly type it, you can do that, but there's no difference. It's up to you how you prefer it. The language will help you and infer the type for you, and that goes for all the types. And again, on line 5, if you give a type of number array and you add a string to it, it's an error. It's not underlined yet because I'm expecting it to be an error. But in JavaScript, that would be valid. You can add an array you can type a number and then can add a string. Well, of course, you can't type a number, but you can add a string to a number array, and it is valid code, which you may or may not be expecting. But of course, according to this, you weren't expecting. And if you wanted to access an array, you can use the bracket notation. If you access the second value or the second index, you get 3. If you access the third index, you get undefined. Does anyone know why we get undefined?
There's no third index.
If there's no third index, there's no value. And should you be getting an error for even accessing the third value? It depends. Some languages are more strictly typed. When you declare an array, you want it to specify a fixed type. There's no way for the compiler or TypeScript compiler to know that it only knows the type is number array. There's no way for it to know that it has a fixed width or fixed length. So it just gives you undefined because there's no value. Some of the languages would be more stricter and it would give you an error. But in this case, there's no way for the I guess there is a way, but it's not enforcing it. That's how TypeScript was written. And so there's a fixed length, or you can make the array fixed length by adding the asConst keyword. Point, like Vincent, not that cool, I guess, but
you can highlight.
And again, if you access the third element, you get an error. And notice how it says tuple type read only 1 to 3 of line 3 has no element in index 3. And adding asConst converts an array to a tuple, which is how you create a tuple. It's one of the ways to create a tuple, but a fixed length array is pretty much a tuple or a tuple. And that's how you can do it. So if you want something that's fixed length, you don't want people to pushing to it, or you don't want people to accessing the element of the wrong place. This makes it type safer in terms of type, and you can use a tuple instead of an array. Moving on. Good to zoom out. That's good. So just a print function, you can provide, so the syntax, you write function, you function name, and curly braces, you can add types, or add arguments, so value, colon, string, and you can comma separate as many as you want. Have a question?
It was related to the string slides. I can wait if you want to finish the slide.
I don't think I have a
Can
string.
you use that on the primitives?
Yeah,
You
primitives.
said if you give it a JS file that it runs as expected. So in JavaScript, are strings reference types or strings primitives?
Strings are primitives.
In JavaScript?
Yes.
Oh.
I believe they're not reference typing. Yeah.
They're primitives. As far as I'm aware.
Yeah. So printf and value colon string, and you can comma separate as many arguments as you want. The return type void and console log, that's printing to the console. You can call the function printf and you provided a value hello world, and that's pretty much the basics of the syntax of a function. There's another way to write the function. But so this is called an arrow function. So if you focus on the right side of the equal signs, it's pretty much like the function above. But as you can see that you can function is pretty much like a value. It's a first class citizen like any other value, like numbers or booleans. So you can assign a variable to a function and you can call it pretty much the same way as you call a regular function, but this is just a different syntax and it has some nuances that we won't get into today just because it's an intro talk, but these are just two common ways to call a function or create a function. The third function is you can have optional arguments. So you can say it's not required. So you can call this function without any arguments and you won't get anything console log because the value that it gets assigned is undefined. And the last example is you can provide default arguments. So if someone doesn't, it kind of works like an optional, but it also adds a default value as a safety measure if you want to. And if you call printfn on the so you don't have to pass something in it, it'll console log hello world. And lastly, just wanted to highlight that if you do call printfn, the first function without any argument, it won't even compile. You'll get an error saying it expects an argument, but it didn't get any argument. So it is type safe in terms of arguments as well. So next, moving on to objects. So here you can see that after the colon, const point colon, this is how you define the type of an object, or that's one of the ways you can define the type of an object, and then you can assign x colon 10 and y colon 5, and you can console or you can access the value using the dot notation, so just dot, and then you'll get IntelliSense, and then you can access x or y, or you can use the bracket notation, and this is mainly used if you have a variable stored and you want to have a dynamic access to a value on the object. You can use the bracket notation. So here I can use a string, or you can use any variable. So this is an example of a small functions where I'm typing an object and returning an object. The arguments are just 2 points and 2 points, and the return type is points, and I'm just adding the x's and y's. And you can see how this syntax is starting to look ugly. There's 2 object types, and you can imagine if you have 15 properties, that's going to take a lot of space on your code, and that looks ugly, and you wish there was a way to save a type as a variable, and we'll see how we can do that. You can call add points like that, and so that's interface is one of the ways to save the object type as a variable. So you can create iPoint interface, and you can just replace the typing with iPoint, and it works as expected. Similarly, you can create a type. There's some differences between interface and type that we'll see in the next couple slides, but here you can use the same syntax. Similar to, the function doesn't really change, it's similar to how we wrote add points interface. Add points type is similar, just changing it from a iPoint to a point. And lastly, there are some cases where you need optional types on optional properties on an object, and you can add a colon, not a colon, but a question mark like I have in front of middle, and then when you declare the function, you don't have to specify that, and it'll have the property, or if you try to access it, you'll get undefined, but the compiler won't complain that you have to have middle, or the middle property in the object, but it'll complain if you skip first or last, or X or Y in the case above. So moving on to classes. That's good. So classes, we could do a whole, talk just on exploring classes or object-oriented programming just in TypeScript, but I just wanted to mention just the basics features that you can have. You can, like other OOP language, you can have a modifier for private or public. So in this case, the X and Y's are private. You can have a constructor, and then you can assign using this dot X equals X, this dot Y equals Y. And you can create getters and setters, and since they're private, we need to create some public getters and setters to update or access them. You can have read-only properties. You can have static methods, just like other languages. I guess I have a typo there, line 17, just had an S floating around. But you can have a regular method, toString, and a static method, add points, which is just something we saw earlier. And I just wanted to also mention something cool that I've noticed in TypeScript but not in other languages. If you look on line 29, this does the same job as the first, I would say, 8 lines in the first point does, that using private x colon number, private y colon number, you also, not only do you say which values are accepted by the constructor, you also create local properties on them. So you don't have to use this dot x equals x. Like I think I don't know about you guys, but I really find that syntax ugly. Like for any OOP project, you have to have 15, or hopefully you don't have 15 this dot x. That would be a bad class constructor, but it can get pretty messy. And you hope there was a way, and then TypeScript does. It end up finding a way to fix that.
I have a question. Yeah. On the top part, like lines 1 to 8, where you're talking about that, so the x and y on line 5 are the variables that are being passed in, but then the x and y on 2 and 3 and 6 and 7, are those the same x and y as each other?
Yeah, good point. So if you want to access a property of the class, that would be this dot x. So this dot x is referring to line 2, x, and x colon number, that is just x. So I could have renamed the one on the right side and also renamed the one on the constructor at the same time, and that would work. Yeah, good question. So finally, I want to talk about some more types that I just kind of put together at the end. So you can create a type, literal type. So I mentioned in this example on line 15, you can create a type and you can assign it to an object, and it works as expected. As you can see on line 16, you can use it after colon. So you can create your own types in JavaScript. You're not limited to just using numbers or booleans or the primitives that they have in their language. You can create your own type. So in this example, you can create this is called a union type. It's sort of, think about a drop down. A drop down is one field, but you can have many values that can belong to that field. So an example is direction. You can think of genders. You can think of state. You can use the type. It's an or operator, and you can combine as many as you want. I don't think there's a limit to how many types you can or together. This is called a union type, and you can use it in a function. For example, just add the type direction, and you can use left, one of the properties on it, and you'll get IntelliSense. If you just press colon, you'll get all the 4 options or as many options as you have on your type, on your union type. And if you type anything such as, this is just capital L, it won't accept that, it'll error out compile time. And another way to do the same thing is enums. You can do a similar thing like enums, and you can create, for example, a confirmation enum for the properties that you want to allow the users to go through. So in this case, yes or no, and then line 17, you can have a response. And it's different from using the type, like on line 7, you can type in the string left. There's no, you don't say direction dot left, but in terms of enum, you would say confirmation dot yes. So you would need to import that enum wherever you want to use a function that accepts it, but it doesn't work the same way for types. And the only difference that I know between both of them is that with an enum, you can enumerate or loop over it. So if you didn't want to show the users those values, you can loop over them. But in terms of types, I don't think you can loop over them since they're not values. And yeah, you can, do you agree, line 22, you can pass in a string even though it matches the value you have to type, provide that enum type. So I wanted to do a demo, but yeah, let's do it.
I can be the chair for that.
You just tell me what to do. I know TypeScript and React. I can figure out what you want to do.
So go to y.ts first.
Why not? Yes.
So yeah, can you zoom in a little bit?
Oh, zoom in.
Yeah.
There we go.
So this is a code that I had from before. Like I said, it's a TypeScript file, but yeah, just add colon string, like make a type string. And you can see that this is not the compiler, and this is a built-in, I guess, background compiler and stack. Let's say anything happens in every other major IDE, but all of a sudden you're getting those errors just by adding colon string. And this shows the power of TypeScript. You know, that push is not allowed, calling a string, this doesn't make sense. All of those methods are not available. Length is available, but length doesn't have an internal property of meters. And similarly, you can't call it with a string, array of strings or an object or a function. But if you add string array to, if you make the type string array on line 1, you can then call, line 15. And similarly, you can change the type, and it'll be very strict as to what it expects the function to accept. It's a generic array, you have to say string. String.
Oh, right.
So line 15 works, but not the other ones work. So that I wanted to show that. I think that's pretty cool that the language that JavaScript, which was been on the internet for 20 years, and TypeScript has finally found an answer for that. This is a pretty cool solution. Just add a colon. And they made it really easy to migrate from JavaScript to TypeScript. You just add colon type everywhere. So I think that's pretty cool. Go to index.ts. How many of you have used React? Quite a few of you. Okay. So have you used React with TypeScript or JavaScript? JavaScript. Okay. So have you ever, I guess, had an issue where you have a function and you're passing in props, but you don't really know what props to pass it, so you have to go back and forth between the actual component and check which props are there. So in this case, it really helps that you can create a component and you can provide it props and state. So on line 11, a component is a generic type, and you can pass it add props, which is declared on line 6. So that says it doesn't accept any props. And state, when you have this dot state, you have app state, which is declared on line 7. You're only forced to only have names in it. So if Vincent, if you add something on line 16, some value like last name, for example, and you get an error because that's not what the state is supposed to be. So it can be really helpful in preventing errors when you're not expecting the state to go a certain way or to be a certain type, and you get the error that type name last name does not match interface app state. So you can really enforce those issues, and if you have different same interface that's being used in multiple components, you can make sure that they're all following the same pattern, and you can be confident that your code won't even run. I think a lot of people may not like that, but it's actually a good thing that your code is not even running when there's an error. You don't want to miss those errors because you feel good, okay, my code is working finally, but it's not, you won't like it when it's in production, or if it's running and people find bugs when they're actually using it in production. So it's better that they get caught in compile time before even testing. And similarly, if you, on line 30, if you try to pass down a prop to app, for example, like test, yeah. And if you hover over the arrow there, similarly, yeah, it's pretty ugly big message, but again, test prop, is not a valid prop because on line 6, it's not what we're expecting the app to have. But if you add test prop here, for instance, the error should go away. And again, it's only string if you type it to be a number, and it won't work because QWERTY is a string, not a number. Again, you have an error saying that it's type string instead of a number. So, any questions about that? No, it's good. I think that's all I wanted to show on the stack list.
You want to see the load up? Yes, there's nothing there.
No, that's good. Yeah, I think that's it. Any questions, guys? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you can have any types that you want. Have a function there if you want. Any type. Any other questions? Go ahead.
What's the difference between the interface?
Yeah, good question. So the only difference that I think it was objects. The only difference that I was able to find online is that you can, you can do extend both. You can add, when you're creating a type, you can use an ampersand. You can extend a type like that. You can do unions. I don't know if you can implement a class and implement an interface. I don't know if a class can implement a type. And you can declare the interface multiple times throughout the app. So if you have interface I point on line 12, I can do the same thing on line 13 and add a new type too. So I can extend it like that. I can say what Z, and I can do that. But with types, you can't declare them twice. So those are the only two things that I know. You have anything to add?
Oh no, I just these things like let me just
Hello, everyone. We have anyone here who knows what the adventure games are? Is Monkey Island? Perfect. What's your name again? Chris is my favorite person for this night.
It's just because I'm so old that would be the type of games we have.
This is actually sad because it actually makes sense because this is kind of sad to me, but adventure games are not as common nowadays. They used to be more popular in the past, which to me is kind of sad because storytelling is a very important element and is very powerful in these games, probably the most of all genres out there.
And also, by the way, we are dealing with a big topic here. I'm trying to encapsulate 5 years of work on this project into this presentation. But don't worry, I'll be fast. I promise you will be home before midnight.
I just realized that.
Actually, technically, this is true. So first, I'm going to introduce what point-and-click adventure games are. We'll talk about my project, and then finally, how you can make your own project. And remember, we are talking about indie game development. So basically, you are a one-man band. You're not working with a big team. You have to be the jack of all trades, sort of. And we will come back to this point later on. So what is an adventure game? Adventure game is basically a story, but it is more interactive. It's like you are watching a movie. But instead of passively watching, you are taking an active part by controlling your main character. You are helping him or her overcome obstacles. And in adventure game terminology, I might as well have said, help him or her solve puzzles, because puzzles are at the core and the building blocks of adventure games. Adventure games were not always like this. They did not always have visuals. When they first started, think you have become used to this by now. Vincent, I need your help.
Oh, sorry. Hit the radar. Oh, sorry. There you go.
Perfect, you are the best. Adventure games, when they first started, they were like this. They were only text only. That was Zork from 77 and is an important milestone in adventure games history. I don't want this slide. Okay, that went over one slide, but that's fine. That's fine. It doesn't affect us. So here you start to see some visuals, and we have some progress. This was a blooming stage. It's a very important phase in the history of adventure games, and this era is very fascinating to me because it witnessed some kind of a cold war between two big players. Sierra on one hand, you must know this, and LucasArts on the other. They adopted profoundly different styles, not only when it comes to visuals and atmosphere, but also when it comes to game mechanics, to the game dynamics. Sierra, for example, was the one where your character would die every 3 minutes. That was horrible. Their games were notorious for having death traps everywhere. Like exploring a scene in a Sierra game felt like walking through a minefield. And that's not the worst part. You could get stuck. Like literally, you could be in chapter 5 of the game, running in circles for on and on and on forever, only to later find out that you did not pick an important item in chapter 1. And there is no way around it just to get back and start all over again. To this day, nobody knows why Sierra considers killing your character and having you start all over again to be an accomplishment and something to be proud of. And then LucasArts comes in and they say, no, we're not going to do that. This is way too sadistic. You can explore your scenes as much as you want safely, and your character will never die. They're my favorite. And this is a very important milestone here where they created LucasArts, the Scum engine. The Scum engine then became the foundation of many adventure games to come. And they were also inspirational. Here comes another milestone. The Curse of Monkey Island. Anyone who is into adventure games knows the Curse of Monkey Island is very iconic. And this is one of this became like an inside joke where Guyver Streetfood, this is the guy's name, where he's saying, look behind you, a three-headed monkey, and these guys don't believe him. We heard that before, because he will say it again and again, over and over when they want to catch him. And the second they turn their heads, he's gone. And the one time when actually a three-headed monkey appeared behind them, they never saw it. Okay, I'm not sure what this old game is doing in this slide. Actually, I'm just kidding you. I know what it's doing here. I put it on purpose because this is a new game. This game was developed in 2007, and it looks old on purpose. It's trying to imitate old school games. And many people, including myself, find it cool. It is very nostalgic. So today you have these two main lines of adventure games. You have the ones that are nostalgic and the ones that look more modern. Now here's one fun fact about adventure games. This game, Deponia, was developed by a German studio. Interestingly, Germany happens to be the biggest market today of point-and-click adventure games. They might be actually the ones who saved this genre because it was about to die. And for our game, they make 20% of our purchases, roughly. And that is a lot. Now to the story of our project, how it all started. And it all started from that school flash contest. One day, my brother Kiran comes to me, and he tells me, Haritha, I'm participating in a coding competition. I want some drawings. I enjoy sketching. So I said, yeah, all right, I will help you. I gave him something, and he created this little masterpiece. It won second prize though. It got the second place. It was a school contest, and he did something unique. He did a game. It was creative. It had a story. And then it hit me. Kinan knows how to write code. He is also an animator. Sinan knows how to draw. He is very good in concept art picture. I like to write stories. We actually make a team. This is all you need to create an adventure game. So I told them, why don't we make our own game? And sure enough, we did. Okay, this slide is because Sinan now works as a professional photographer. This is one of his photos. We started creating our world. We did the concept art picture, we wrote a story, we wrote dialogue. All right, I will, don't mind this. So the story of the game, this is after it. I will get back to this later. I believe that you can see a bit of an improvement here. So this is what happened. We started as a Flash game project. It did not remain there. Something was happening. We were raising the bar over time. Sinan finished his first background, and we were still not completely satisfied. No, we want something better. We want better and better and better. We started hiring people. And also Kinan shifted to another development engine, which is something, this is a very important decision. You are working on a game. We created a full prototype. When you are creating a game, it's important to have a prototype for experiment, because you want to make sure that you know what you are doing. So this is just one scene from the game, but it has all the elements that you need. It has a main character, it has NPCs, it has scene objects, it has animation. It felt like a mini game to us. And we worked steadily, slowly but steadily, and over 2 years, we had over 60% of the game's visual assets already created, and we had a full prototype coded on AGS, which is also Scum, in other words. And then we decided to change the engine. For those of you who don't have a background about this kind of work, this is a big decision. It was not an easy decision. When you change the engine, that means that you have thrown all your older code and you have to start all over again. It was a very difficult decision, but we had our reasons to do it. I had, actually, it was my decision, and it paid off. But I will stop here. So let's put a bookmark, and remember these hashtag terms, because we are going to get back to all of them. Since I already gave you a very general bird view idea of what adventure games are, now I'm going to showcase to you one puzzle, because this is the micro unit that makes an adventure game. It's like my smallest Lego brick. Some turns very quick. This is how you interact. You have interactive like areas. So you have your inventory items and the scene objects. Some of them you can take. You can explore. You can take information, and you can also interact with the NPCs. And it is the same thing. Usually you take information from the NPCs, or if they have something that you want, or maybe you have something that they want, so you can give that to them and take something in return. So here, your puzzle, your objective, you want that concept art picture. You badly want it. And why you want it? Because somebody else wants it, and you need something from him, so you are going to make that trade. And this is how puzzles work. Usually a puzzle is a requirement to another one. They work like a chain. You solve a puzzle, and then that unlocks another one, and so on and so forth. And I will going to share with you later a puzzle dependency chart so that you can see how that looks like. So back here, you know that you are going to win that concept art picture if you win the game against this booth master. But things, of course, are not always that easy. Something fishy is happening here. You built that house of cards here, but then somehow it collapses. Nobody touches it, and you have to figure out why. Later on, when you explore around, and this is also another mini puzzle that you have to figure out, you find out that he is hiding a magnet behind the desk. And those cards are made of metal. They're steel cards. Why do you think he is using a magnet and steel cards? Now you are connecting the dots. And you know that in order to win against this cheater, you have to strip away the magnet from him. But how do you do that? If you just take the magnet, he will figure out that the magnet is missing, and he is not going to play with you again. If only there was something that looked like a magnet, something like a fake magnet. Look at that. A horseshoe. That looks like a magnet, sort of, but it's not there quite yet. It doesn't have the right color. And then you explore around a little bit more, and you find the red paint. Perfect. Now you have something that is not a magnet, but it looks like one. And now you are ready to go and switch the two. And in case you were wondering how all this stuff can fit into Jotha's pocket, I'm afraid to tell you that for a video gamer, that question is not as smart as you might think. This is one of my favorite comments, by the way. I open it, laugh at it daily. No, I don't do that. That would be weird. Weekly, no more than that. Now you go back to the booth, and you're ready. You have that fake magnet. You switch the two. You play the game again. Where's the happy face? Now you have won the game. And voila, you take the picture. And here it shows the picture in your inventory. So this is one of the puzzles, and even this puzzle, by the way, is a little bit more complicated. I skipped so many puzzles to solve this one because we want to save time. But I wanted to give you a general idea. We don't need that. So now back here. We stopped where I made the decision to change the engine. And the main reason for this is, and this is important for any program, is scope creep. Okay, before that, yeah, you have your expectations about your project, going smooth and nicely, but reality is always different. Sometimes you have downs, and then you have to get up again. So, our project was sprawling everywhere, and that was sprawling out of control. Features have been added, and the bar was being raised on and on again. I wanted to control that, and I found out there was no way to control that until I controlled the engine myself. My brother Kinar was using AGS, and I was about to learn AGS myself, but then I figured, since I'm going to take things into my hand anyway, why not search for a better engine? And that's what I did. Yep, this is what you do, you pivot. So we pivoted. And when I changed the engine, I also reworked the story. So the project eventually, it was inherited twice. The first time when the Flash game became the AGS game, and lastly when it became the Unity game. Then this is what it is today. And I will talk in more detail about the engines shortly. Some traces still remain. When we rework things, some of the old story remains. There's still find it there. It was the best decision made. Now, I'm going to speak to you how to make your own project. This is a flow. It's not very strict. Some of these steps are overlapping for sure. But you start with deciding on the engine that you are going to start with first, and then you do the story, you do the concept art, and these are overlapping for sure. Well, but why do you start with the engine first? Well, because the engine that you choose will define your options and limitations for later. Engines don't have the same features. Some of them are easier to use, but they are also more limited. Some of them are more versatile, but they are more complicated, and you need to go more deeply technical. And that's not the only problem. If it is more versatile and complicated, it can really surprise you. And I'm going to show you one example where that actually happened. If you choose your engine wisely, it can really make your life easy. For many of them, you don't even have to know how to write code. You can use this visual scripting. And if you're not aspiring to be a hardcore programmer, what's better than that? These are three main options. I'm not going to go into detail for adventure game development. But here's a very quick comparison just to put things into perspective. This is a comparison between the engine that we were using and the one that we migrated to. The one that we were using was simpler, but it was also more limited. The one that we migrated to, Unity, we did not migrate to an engine that was specifically designed for adventure game creation. Unity is very versatile, but we used it with an added add-on, and that made things easy. However, you still have to deal with all the complexities of Unity itself. And again, I will show you an example about that soon. This is the kind of questions that you ask yourself before you choose your engine. If you want to port to other systems, for example, now AGS only ports to Windows, but Unity can port to all major ones. This is how Unity interface looks like. Of course, going in detail is beyond the scope of this talk. But just to give you a very general idea. And I like it, I find it very intuitive. Here you can see that the sheet is selected. And here to the right, you have what is called the inspector pane. The inspector pane has the attributes. And it's a very nice structure here. When you create a new object, it has only one attribute. It has only the dimension. It just exists. And then if you want to create an NPC or anything more complicated out of this, you start adding the attributes. Is it an NPC? Does it have dialogue? You add one attribute for dialogue, you add one for animation, etc. Like this is a very simple one. This one has only one additional attribute other than the major one, which is the sprite renderer. Now that's a secret Easter egg in our game. And the pun was not even intended. The statue that you see here in the background, this was designed after my brother Kina. Story and puzzle chart. This is how a puzzle chart looks like. And you need to have it ready before you start working on anything. This is very foundational. This is not the one that we use. This is the Monkey Island. Puzzle chart. We had one, but it is on paper, and I don't have it anymore. I don't have an electronic copy of that. Now this concept art, character design, it goes hand in hand while you are creating the story and developing your concept. All these are from our game. These are some quick technical hints when you are dealing with the artwork, which kind of file formats to use, for example, compression, this kind of stuff. Now, surprisingly, it is actually cheaper for you to hire people to help you because they are specialized. It's much more efficient. So we hired two kinds of talents: the artwork talents and the voiceover talents. So I'm covering here first the artwork talents first. The voiceover should be kept until the end on purpose. You can use freelancer.com or Upwork. This shows you that we had, because our animation was a little bit advanced, we had some sort of a production line. So the first step, I would sketch something very quick. I would send it to our character designer, and then he would improve on that. And then a third one would ink that, and then finally they will be colored and added to a scene like this. Here's another example how of our correspondence. When I'm doing the character design between me and Adrian, our character designer. So you can mix and match. I just designed the head, sketched the head, and then I brought a clip art from a library, and then I told him how to. I gave him instructions how to combine the two together. I'm not going, of course, to tell you how to script. This is outside the scope, but make sure to follow some best practices, especially when you are an indie developer, because you want to control the scope, because you want to know what is missing, what you need, what you don't need, what is extra. And it is a very good practice to use dummies a lot. Placeholders. So I coded this scene of the harbor for the longest time using this guy, just a clip art. And then only in later stages I replaced him with the final sprite. Again, also use functions. Functions can be lifesavers. Here's one example. I'm putting this animation for Joytis, our main character, because this is a very recurring animation in our game, but it's very simple. It was tempting for every time for me when he takes something just to script it all over again, and it would be easy. But then, after I was very advanced in coding, we made some adjustments to the animation, and those adjustments required some adjustments to the script. It's very simple, but I have it about 40 times written. Imagine just trying to change it 40 times, and I might miss some of them. So always try to use functions when you can. And this is a table for keeping track of variables, because also variables can very soon grow out of hand. This is the kind of things that helps you. These are examples of when I was, why you should start the dirty work, getting your hands dirty very quickly, because this helps you spot problems, blind spots early on. Here's one example. There's a feature, very nice feature in Unity called parallel scrolling. In 2D games, when you are moving the camera, it creates the illusion of depth when it's not actually there. If a layer is supposed to be closer to the camera, you move it faster. Now this feature does not exist in AGS, the engine that we were using before. But it exists here now in Unity, and I wanted to use it. But then there was a problem. Because we did not know about the feature, we kept the artwork that is behind the front layer, and it was not drawn. There was nothing there. So we had to get back there and have it filled all over again. So this is how getting your hands dirty fast, soon. The sooner the better. This is again another table to just keep track of things. It really helps a lot. Then you fill the details as you go. Now music, you can do it anytime. Voiceover should come last, because you are developing your dialogue, you're fine-tuning, you are making changes, and it's not cheap. Voiceover, surprisingly, has been the single most expensive element of everything else in our project. So you can find your These are ways to find your composer. You can reach directly one-on-one. You can ask for an audition request publicly. These are all options that you have. I already said that. Now this is how to deal with them, give them instructions after you have already hired them. If you have selected your voice talents well, they will give you an easy time, really. You just give them very quick instructions on email. Very simple stuff, like what character it is, what is the situation, and they will do a good job. Usually they send their work in takes, like 3 takes, so that you can choose what you like from. Now the last thing. Once you have done the dirty work, you get back to all the placeholders that you had and you start filling them with the final thing. And then after you are done with that, you reach the debugging and optimization phase. When we finished our game, and this is a problem we wouldn't have run into when we were using AGX, because again, simpler, less versatile, but simpler. But here in Unity, the game was too slow to not publish. That was to load the scene. That is a typo. It took 26 seconds to move from one scene to another. And the scene in an adventure game, we sometimes call them rooms, because they're usually rooms are used for that. So just when you are changing room, you have to wait for 26 seconds. No one is going to buy a game where you have to wait 26 seconds between 2 scenes. Tried almost everything. I started with the artwork because for me that was the biggest suspect. I was wrong. Surprisingly, excuse me, they were the voice files. Again, this is because Unity has not been specifically designed to create point-and-click adventure games. Versatility comes at a cost. Then I was able to find the solution in the community, that instead of using the individual files, you bundle them. That's why it is called asset bundles. And that made the loading time that got it down from 26 seconds to less than a second. Or reason why not always versatile is better. Okay, now here, this is a second thing that I did. I'm first time using slides.com. I was just trying to give you a bird's eye view of what we discussed so far. That first you have the laying groundwork phase in the extreme prototyping stage, where you are heavily depending on placeholders, and then the fine-tuning phase and the cleaning up, where you are like searching for all these placeholders and replacing them with the final thing. And after that, you start testing your product. And then you can publish your game on Steam. That's me, as Vincent told you. We met on the dance floor. I'm Harith Diraniya, thank you so much. And if you have any questions, let me know. The floor is open for questions.
So this is episode 1. Is there going to be an episode 2?
Nobody knows. That's a very embarrassing question. You put me on the spot. Okay, this is one advice that I should don't do episode 1, for God's sake. Let's do a complete project, okay?
When you did the bundled voice assets, you just convert everything to like one file and then just like
That's right.
timestamps, like, and when you use like 0 to 5 second mark.
I don't know honestly about the deep technicalities. I'm not a real programmer like you. Very interesting question though. Thank you.
I'm not a real programmer, I just copy paste back and forth.
I still can't do that. I cannot copy and paste. So you're still one step ahead of me.
I have a question. Isn't every game an adventure game?
Okay. Now there is a wider genre that is called adventure games. And it is more lenient and more forgiving in that sense. The point and click adventure games are what I was discussing. So you're right. But the thing is that because it is a more forgiving term, sometimes games are also considered under this category that don't have a very strong story to it.
What's the story in Tetris?
Who is buying your games?
No, it is already published on Steam. Okay, so this is one of the things. It is advised that you give this to a publisher and you don't publish it yourself. It's a big burden. So the game is already on Steam and being sold.
Did you run into like weird issues publishing it? Like you had it running locally, but then when you published it, was it like weird at all? Like did you have to mute certain things to the file? Or just like, oh, it works locally and push it on Steam now?
Okay, we were lucky because we were working on a single game player, so that went very smoothly. Probably if it was a multiplayer game.
Did you go straight to publishing it, like fully, or did you have like a beta phase where it was available to some people?
Oh, okay, that is a good question. I actually published it first, a beta version, not on Steam, so the answer to this is yes, I did. I published a beta version, yeah, and you should do that. Yeah.
How do you go about choosing your freelancers?
Oh man, this is a long topic. That needs another session, I guess. So it depends. You are focusing on artwork freelancers, or now you're lucky here because you see the outcome of their work immediately. When you are hiring a programmer, for example, you can have a code that is working but dirty. You don't have those fears when you are hiring an artist, luckily. So yeah, it's much easier. You can just see the portfolio and decide for yourself. The same, by the way, goes for voice talents. Choosing voice talents for us has been more tricky because many of the talents follow union prices, which are insane. These prices have not been made for an indie studio for sure. You don't face this problem with artists.
So Steam provides a marketplace for you to sell the game.
Exactly.
How do you market it?
Okay, now Steam helps you a little bit by giving you visibility. So it doesn't just sell the game for you. If you really want your game to be known, you need press releases, you need connections, you need influencers to talk about your game. You need credible websites to give you ratings and reviews. So yeah.
Another question. So as your game becomes more known, are you like worried about any sort of scaling issues with it? Like more people downloading it, or is that not a problem?
It's not in this case, no. Because we are selling copies through Steam and you can sell tens of thousands, no problem at all. It's not a multiplayer game.
I have a question. In Unity, there's like a 2D Unity and like a 3D Unity, right?
That's true.
Isn't like the 2D Unity just like a 3D, and there's like the camera is like off in space?
That's right.
That's all it is, right?
That's right.
It's
It's
the same thing.
just an illusion. And this is how our game works. So all of the graphics that you saw, they're on a plane. But if you move the camera, you will see the plane from the side. So yes, they exist in a 3D world space.
So the whole entire game is a giant billboard, essentially.
Yes, it is.
And there's a camera in front of the billboard.
Yes. And sometimes to make the loading faster, you know what I did? I just placed two planes besides each other, and I just moved the camera. And you are under the illusion that I loaded and you see when I did not. Worked like a charm. Anybody else? Nope. Thank you guys. Oh wait.
So the story of the game, I'm kind of interested in like what kind of motivated that and the name of like Joyful.
Okay, the name of Joyful is interesting. It started, one of my cousins, when he would describe any bizarre situation, he would use the Arabic name Joyfisan. So we started from there, and then we figured no, Joyfisan is too long and too complicated. Let's make it Joyfis. And then when we changed that into English, it became Joyfis. So that's how it evolved. Joyfisan, Joyfis, Joyfis. What's your other question?
The story
Yeah.
behind the game.
This story changed profoundly. It was a very goofy story about someone who is a failure in everything, so he just tries to become a cook and participate in a cooking competition out of boredom and want to change. We changed that profoundly over time. It became of an adventurer, but he's taken a break. And he is participating in a cooking competition, but he's not that goofy person. And he needs a very solid recipe. And this is where you see, just bear with me a little, be there soon. Yeah. So, what happened is that this guy is a very famous chef that you see in the upper image, was using his balloon traveling away from the island where Joyfis lives, and he accidentally dropped one of his most precious recipes. And it is a secret recipe. He didn't publish it to anyone. Now, luckily for that chef, it was still protected because it fell on the village of these native people, and when they were doing their rituals and saw something falling on them from the sky, they assumed it was revelation from God. So they put it into the hand of their big statue over here and are awaiting for the chosen one to come and decipher the contents of this sacred scroll. But of course, that chosen one isn't you, because your skin color is pale. And we're talking about the days when these misunderstandings were not resolved yet. So your objective is to try to switch that scroll with one that is fake. And it doesn't go so well. You're caught and have to figure out how to. That is later in the game.
You mentioned that you've been working on this for several years, right?
It took 5 years.
5 years.
But not since the Unity engine. Since we started over on the Unity engine, it took 2 years.
Is there any like tools or programs that are available now that would have made that process easier?
Probably. Yeah, I found after we were done an engine called Visionaire, and I haven't used it yet myself, but I've seen tutorials and it seems to make the work a little bit easier. So yes, but you see, creating a game is a big project, much bigger than people might think. It usually takes a year or two of full-time work, and we didn't have that luxury. We were never just working on the game. It was a side project. My two brothers were students. I had my 9 to 5. I came here again as a student, so. Okay guys, I guess that's it. Thank you so much. I will leave the floor to Vincent for his concluding remarks. And look at that, I finished at 9:00 exactly.
Perfect timing. All right, here it is. So, thank you so much, Ari and Zabi, for the presentations. They were phenomenal. Yeah, so that was pretty much. Oh, also, does anyone want to do a lightning talk? A lightning talk is like, if you have something interesting you want to showcase, maybe it's like your own side project, or like a tool you found online, or just anything you find interesting on the web, or Hacker News, or Reddit, or whatever you're looking at. Does anyone want to share anything that they've been working on or have seen that they want to showcase to anyone else? Anybody? Nobody? I can share something I found. Would you guys like to see it? You can say yes or no, it doesn't matter. If you say no, I won't share. Yeah, so let me go back here. How do I? Yeah, so I was writing up a blog about this. It's something I have to solve at work. It's called a session timeout modal. Has anyone ever heard of this before? Does anyone know what this is? No one knows what a session timeout modal is. I'm kind of sad. I'm just joking. I mean, that's probably because we got work in, or I don't know. Maybe, whatever. Basically what it is if you're on a site too long, if you're on like a bank website, and does this scroll down? Does this go down? No, I can't scroll with this. Anyways, the gist of it is if you're on like a bank website, for instance, and you're AFK too long, you away from the keyboard, you don't want your account, visible to anyone else that walks by, right? You want it to kick you off, sign you out, whatever. So I had to figure out how to do this for work, and this was written in React. So basically, what it is this is kind of like a general workflow for like, hey, what the user experience is like for most of these things. So basically, if you're a user and you sign into the application, and then you're on the bank website, and you've got all this like private information on there. If you AFK for a period of time, it'll pop up this modal, and you can either continue or log out or AFK and get kicked out. So that's kind of like an overview of the gist of it. I want to show you what it actually looks like. So really quick. So here's the demo. I want to show you a demo of it. I'm just gonna skip all this. So open up a new tab. Basically, if I AFK for 5 seconds, it'll pop up this annoying modal, kind of like a pop-up ad. And it's like, hey, do you want to stay logged in or do you want to log off? If I hit log in, it'll just go back to this page again. But if I wait 5 more seconds, it'll just pop up again. And then if I wait 10 seconds, it'll just kick me off. So that's kind of, yeah, what's up?
So how do you set up the AFK? You have a macro search on the mouse?
Yeah, I was gonna show you how that works. So how that works is, it's right here. Here's the secret sauce. I literally call it secret sauce. What you do is, gosh, I don't know how to blow this up. What you do is you have this thing called timeout logic, and there's like 2 warnings. Oh, this is the logic, by the way. I was gonna show you like a breakdown of how it works. So the first thing you do, if you're not familiar with React has this thing called use effect. It's like whenever something updates, you just watch for changes. And what it does is, hey, I'm gonna watch for changes against this modal, because like that modal is either open or closed. And then if it's open, I'll go ahead and do something. If it's not, I'll do something else. And after that, you can set up like your timeout methods for calling it, and like a cleanup method for like clearing out that timeout. And then once you're done with that, you can like set up event listeners, like you're saying, Justin. Like, hey, I want to track down if the user is typing out like add event listeners or whatever, if they're doing key presses, mouse moves, or whatever. That'll just clear off the timeout every time. reset it, and then that's when you have to wait 5 more seconds, essentially. And then this is kind of like all the code that comes together. Like you just add the event list and you clean it up every time. That way you're always like re-triggering it. And then the listener will just like have like a callback or like a check. They'll say like, hey, if that modal is open, do something. If it's not, do something else. So everything is kind of controlled by the modal. And then you've got like a little thing in React where you can have like conditional rendered divs, or sorry, conditional rendered JSX, which is like the code that appears on the page. And that's pretty much it. This is like the modal itself, and it's like a pretty standard implementation of how modals are implemented in React. Like you could say like, hey, if it's open, do something. If it's not, do something else. So yeah, I just want to showcase that. It was just something I was working on. That's a lightning talk basically. Really short and sweet. Yeah.